I stood outside the gleaming glass lobby, watching as my sister Amanda cut the red ribbon stretched across her new condo doorway. My parents applauded proudly beside her, their faces beaming with joy. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a Forbes notification with my face on their under 30 list. 3 years earlier, at my father's 60th birthday dinner, they had announced they would financially support only Amanda's future because she needs it more. They told me I was on my own. That night changed everything about how I viewed family, success, and what it truly meant to stand alone in this world. Growing up in Lakewood, Ohio, a middle-class suburb of Cleveland, our family of 4 seemed picture-perfect from the outside. My parents, Walter and Nancy Warren, owned a modest 3-bedroom home on a tree-lined street where neighborhood kids played street hockey until sunset. Dad worked as an accountant at a local firm while Mom taught 3rd grade at Lakewood Elementary. They weren't wealthy, but they provided a stable life focused on traditional values: education, hard work, and family loyalty. From early on, the differences between my younger sister Amanda and me were apparent. 3 years my junior, Amanda struggled with academics and organization. While I maintained straight A's through disciplined study habits, she fought to earn C's despite being equally bright in her own way. "Charlton, can you help me with this math homework?" became a nightly request by the time she reached 4th grade. I would sit patiently beside her at the kitchen table, explaining fractions and decimals while our parents prepared dinner. "You're so good with her," Mom would say, squeezing my shoulder. "She looks up to you." And I took that responsibility seriously. When kids at school made fun of Amanda for getting answers wrong in class, I stepped in. I still remember confronting Tommy Larson, a 6th grade bully who had made Amanda cry. "If you have a problem with my sister, you have a problem with me," I told him, standing tall despite being smaller than most boys my age. Tommy never bothered Amanda again. This dynamic continued through high school. I joined the debate team, maintained perfect attendance, and worked weekends at the local hardware store from age 16. By graduation, I had saved nearly $6,000 for college while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. Charlton's the responsible one became my parents' standard introduction at family gatherings. He's going places. Meanwhile, Amanda developed a different reputation. She changed friend groups seasonally, abandoned extracurricular activities midway through the year, and spent more time on her appearance than schoolwork. When she earned a C- in chemistry her junior year, our parents hired an expensive tutor. "Amanda just learns differently," Dad explained, when I questioned the $300 weekly expense that exceeded my monthly earnings at the hardware store. "Not everyone can be naturally academic like you." Despite these differences, I loved my sister fiercely. We shared inside jokes, watched movies together on weekends, and I taught her to drive in empty parking lots when she failed the test twice. College acceptance letters arrived during my senior year. I received scholarships to several universities and chose Ohio State's business program with a technology minor. With my savings, scholarships, and student loans, I could manage without burdening my parents financially. Amanda's college journey proved more complicated. She applied to 7 schools her senior year, but was waitlisted at most. She eventually enrolled at Cleveland State, changing her major 3 times in the first year alone. Communications, psychology, then back to communications with a marketing concentration. Each change extended her timeline and increased costs. She took 6 years to complete a 4-year degree, accumulating over $70,000 in student loans. While I worked internships during summer breaks and maintained part-time employment throughout college, Amanda focused on social activities and struggled academically. Our parents sent her extra money monthly, which I never questioned, assuming they were helping both of us equally according to our needs. The truth revealed itself at my college graduation dinner. We celebrated at Giovanni's, an upscale Italian restaurant I had carefully saved for. After the server brought champagne, Dad raised his glass for a toast. "To Charlton's achievement," he said proudly, "and to some family news. We've made an important financial decision." I smiled expectantly, thinking perhaps they had planned a graduation gift or wanted to help with my upcoming apartment lease. We've used the remainder of our family education fund to pay off Amanda's student loans, Mom announced, reaching across the table to squeeze my sister's hand. She needed it more than you, Charlton. We know you understand. The room seemed to tilt slightly as I processed this information. The family education fund had been discussed throughout my childhood as a resource for both children's college expenses. I had deliberately avoided asking for my portion, wanting to make my own way as much as possible, assuming it would help with graduate school or a future home purchase. That's great, I managed to say, forcing a smile. Amanda deserves a fresh start. My sister beamed. Thanks, Char. I promise I'll make the most of it. Later that night, in the privacy of my apartment, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of the revelation. The fund my grandparents had established, intended for both grandchildren, had been entirely allocated to Amanda. I hadn't received a penny. I didn't confront my parents. Instead, I made a silent promise to myself. I would succeed on my own terms, without expecting anything from anyone. If I was truly on my own, I would embrace that independence fully and prove what I could accomplish. This wasn't about money. It was about equal consideration, equal love, equal belief in both children's potential. But I kept these thoughts private and focused on building my future one calculated step at a time. 3 years after graduation, I had established myself at Technova, a promising startup developing supply chain optimization software. My position as project manager paid enough for a modest one-bedroom apartment in Columbus and allowed me to start building savings. The company offered stock options instead of competitive salary, a risk I willingly accepted for potential future rewards. One Tuesday in September, Mom called to remind me about Dad's 60th birthday celebration that weekend. We're having a special dinner at home, she said. Amanda's coming, of course. It wouldn't be complete without both of you. I'll be there, I promised, already planning to leave work early Friday to make the 2-hour drive to Lakewood. Despite my limited budget, I purchased a high-end fishing rod Dad had admired in a catalog months earlier. I wrapped it carefully and placed it in my car alongside an expensive bottle of bourbon. The family home looked exactly as it had throughout my childhood. Mom's hydrangeas bloomed along the front walkway, and Dad's meticulously maintained lawn remained the neighborhood standard. I parked behind Dad's new Lexus SUV, noting that they had upgraded vehicles since my last visit. Charlton? Mom embraced me at the door, her familiar perfume triggering a wave of nostalgia. You look thin. Are you eating properly? Dad emerged from his study, reading glasses perched on his nose. The prodigal son returns, he joked, pulling me into a firm embrace. Good to see you, son. We settled in the living room with drinks, while Mom put finishing touches on dinner. Dad talked about his upcoming retirement, planned for the following year. 35 years at the same firm, he said proudly. They're giving me quite the send-off. You deserve it, I replied sincerely. How's the market been treating your retirement accounts? A shadow crossed his face momentarily. Well enough. We've had to make some adjustments to our portfolio, but nothing to worry about. At 6:30, an hour after the scheduled start time, Amanda finally arrived. Her fashionably distressed jeans and designer handbag suggested expensive taste despite her employment status. She had quit her third marketing assistant position 2 months earlier, explaining via family group text that the company didn't value creative talent. Sorry I'm late, she announced, kissing Mom's cheek. Traffic was insane. She handed Dad a card and small wrapped package before hugging me. Looking good, big brother. Still working all those crazy hours? The startup life, I replied with a shrug. How's the job hunt? I'm being selective, she said, reaching for the wine Mom had poured. I have some promising leads in event planning. Dinner progressed pleasantly enough. Dad carved the prime rib he reserved for special occasions, while Mom served her famous garlic mashed potatoes. We reminisced about family vacations and neighborhood characters from our childhood. After the birthday cake and Dad's obvious delight with my gift, Mom cleared her throat meaningfully. Walter and I have an announcement, she said, reaching for Dad's hand across the table. We've made some important decisions about our future. Dad nodded solemnly. As retirement approaches, we've been reevaluating our finances and family priorities. Something in their exchanged glance made my stomach tighten. We've decided to liquidate some of our investments, Dad continued. We're using the funds to secure Amanda's future by purchasing her a condominium in Shaker Heights and providing a monthly stipend until she finds her professional footing. Amanda squealed with delight, jumping up to hug both parents. You guys are literally the best parents ever. I can't believe it. I sat perfectly still, processing this information. The Shaker Heights neighborhood they mentioned was upscale, with properties starting around $500,000. That's significant, I said carefully. What about your retirement security? We've run the numbers, Dad replied, his accountant persona taking over. We'll manage just fine. I nodded slowly, then asked the question hanging in the air. Is there a similar arrangement for me? The room fell silent. Amanda's smile faltered slightly. Charlton, Dad said, his tone suddenly businesslike, you're on your own financially. You've always been capable of supporting yourself. Amanda's situation is different. You don't need our help, Mom added, as if this explained everything. Amanda does. You understand that, don't you? Before I could respond, Amanda raised her wine glass. To the best parents anyone could ask for, Mom and Dad lifted their glasses, beaming with approval at their younger child. I mechanically raised mine, feeling oddly distant from the scene, as if watching it happen to someone else. Of course I understand, I said quietly. After dessert, I offered to help Mom with dishes while Dad showed Amanda property listings on his laptop in the living room. I could hear her excited exclamations as they discussed amenities and neighborhood features. Sweetheart, would you grab the coffee creamer from the refrigerator in the garage? Mom asked. I nodded and headed through the side door. The garage refrigerator stood next to Dad's desk, where he often worked during summer months, when the house air conditioning struggled to reach the upstairs office. His laptop sat open, email inbox visible. I wasn't looking to snoop, but a subject line caught my eye. Managing Charlton's expectations, final plan. The sender was their financial advisor, Thomas Greenfield. My hand froze midway to the refrigerator handle. Ethics warred with curiosity for 3 seconds before the latter won. I clicked the email. Walter and Nancy. As discussed, I've prepared the documents transferring the majority of your liquid assets to the Amanda Support Trust. The purchase offer for the Shaker Heights property is ready for signature. Regarding your concerns about Charlton's reaction, I understand your position that your estate has always been intended primarily for Amanda's security. The language you've suggested about Charlton being on his own seems appropriate given his career trajectory and self-sufficiency. Let me know when you're ready to execute these documents. Best regards, Thomas. The email was dated 3 months earlier. This wasn't a recent decision or a division of remaining assets. This was the culmination of a long-term plan to direct family resources primarily to Amanda. I closed the email, grabbed the creamer, and returned to the kitchen, mind racing. The dinner's scripted nature now made perfect sense. They had rehearsed this announcement, anticipated my questions, and prepared their justifications. Is everything okay? Mom asked as I handed her the creamer. You look pale. Just tired from the drive, I lied, helping her arrange coffee cups on a tray. When we rejoined Amanda and Dad, they were looking at virtual tours of luxury condos. This one has a concierge and rooftop pool, Amanda gushed. Can you imagine me living there? Nothing but the best for our girl, Dad said fondly. Later, as the evening wound down, I tried one more time to understand the family's financial dynamics. I'm curious about the decision-making process here, I said carefully. Was this always the plan for the family resources? Dad's expression hardened slightly. What exactly are you asking, Charlton? Just trying to understand if there was ever consideration of dividing family assets equally between Amanda and me. Amanda rolled her eyes dramatically. Here we go. Mr. Successful needs his share too, right? That's not what I meant, I began. But Mom cut me off. Charlton, you've always been independent. Amanda needs more support. Questioning our decision seems selfish. The word hung in the air between us. Selfish. For asking about equitable treatment from the people who raised me. I see, I said quietly. Thanks for clarifying. Later that night, in my old bedroom surrounded by high school debate trophies and honor roll certificates, I made the hardest decision of my life. I packed my overnight bag methodically, wrote a brief note thanking them for dinner, and slipped out before dawn. As I drove away from Lakewood in the early morning light, I realized I was truly on my own now, not just financially, but emotionally. And strangely, the certainty of that knowledge felt more like freedom than loss. The 6-hour drive from Ohio to Pittsburgh gave me time to think. I had a cousin there who could put me up for a few days while I figured out next steps. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Mom, then Dad, then Amanda, but I couldn't bring myself to respond immediately. By the time I reached Pittsburgh, I had formulated a plan. My project management experience and technical skills were marketable across the country. What I needed was distance and a fresh environment to rebuild. You can stay as long as you need, my cousin Jack offered when I explained the situation without excessive detail. Family looks out for family. The irony wasn't lost on me. Over the next week, I applied to positions nationwide, focusing on tech hubs with growth potential. A Seattle-based startup called Supply Chain AI responded almost immediately, requesting a video interview. We're looking for someone who understands both the technical and business sides of operations, explained Melissa King, their CEO. Your resume suggests you might fit that profile. The position offered significantly lower base salary than my current role, but included substantial equity options. If the company succeeded, those options could become valuable. If it failed, I'd have sacrificed income for nothing. I'll take it, I told Melissa after receiving the offer. When do you need me to start? Yesterday, she laughed. But next Monday works too. I resigned from Technova, sold most of my furniture, packed my car with essentials, and headed west within 2 weeks of leaving Lakewood. The 3,000-mile journey across the country became a symbolic separation from my old life. I sent a brief email to my parents before leaving. I've accepted a position in Seattle and will be relocating immediately. I'll send my new address once I'm settled. I need some time to process recent events. Please respect that. Their responses came quickly. Mom expressed concern about my rash decision. Dad questioned the wisdom of abandoning a stable position for an unknown startup. Amanda didn't respond at all. Seattle welcomed me with its characteristic rainy embrace. My new apartment was barely 500 square feet, in a building that had seen better days. The rent consumed nearly 40% of my reduced salary, but its proximity to the office eliminated commuting costs. Supply Chain AI operated from a converted warehouse in the industrial district. 14 employees shared an open floor plan with mismatched furniture and unreliable heating. But beneath the startup chaos lay revolutionary ideas about using artificial intelligence to predict supply chain disruptions before they occurred. We're 6 months from running out of funding, Melissa confided during my first week. But we're also 6 months from a breakthrough that could transform global logistics. We just need to thread that needle. The next months tested every limit I thought I had. 14-hour workdays became standard. I learned to code in languages I'd only peripherally understood before. When the office air conditioning failed during a summer heat wave, we worked in t-shirts with fans blowing directly on our computers to prevent overheating. I slept on an air mattress in my apartment for 3 months before finding time to buy proper furniture. My social life consisted entirely of interactions with coworkers, many of whom became close friends through our shared mission and challenges. Teresa Davis, our venture capital liaison, became a particularly important connection. 20 years my senior with silver-streaked hair and a reputation for spotting unicorn companies, she took an interest in my development. "You're not just a project manager," she told me over late-night takeout at the office. "You see connections others miss. That's rare and valuable." Under her mentorship, I expanded my role beyond managing timelines to contributing to the core algorithm design. When our lead developer quit after a dispute with Melissa, I stepped in to maintain critical systems despite limited formal training. "You're keeping us alive," Melissa admitted during month 5, when funding had dwindled to dangerous levels. "The board's impressed with how you've adapted." Meanwhile, my communication with family had dwindled to occasional text messages. Mom sent regular updates. I responded to politely, but briefly. Dad forwarded articles about failed startups with cautionary notes. Amanda remained silent until 6 months after my departure. The invitation arrived via email on a Tuesday morning as I troubleshooted a server crash. "You're invited?" Amanda's condo warming celebration. The attached photo showed my sister standing before a modern glass and steel building. A red ribbon stretched across the doorway of what appeared to be a corner unit with floor-to-ceiling windows. My parents stood beside her, champagne glasses raised. I stared at the image longer than necessary, noting details I wished I could ignore. Dad's new watch, Mom's designer dress, the logo of Shaker East Residences, one of the most exclusive developments in the area. Out of curiosity, I searched property listings for the building. Units started at $750,000. The corner units, like Amanda's, exceeded $850,000. That same afternoon, Melissa called an emergency company meeting. "I have news," she announced, her expression unreadable. "BrightLogic has made an acquisition offer." BrightLogic was a major player in business intelligence software. Their interest validated our technology's potential. "The offer has conditions," Melissa continued. "They want the technology and the team. Everyone would receive positions in their organization, with substantial bonuses." Murmurs of excitement rippled through the room. "There's more." Melissa held up her hand. "They've identified several key personnel they consider essential to the acquisition. These individuals would receive enhanced compensation packages, but must commit to remaining with BrightLogic for a minimum of 3 years. She looked directly at me. "Charlton, you're on that list." Later, in her office, she outlined the details. "They're offering you 4 times your current salary, plus a signing bonus and accelerated vesting of your equity." I whistled softly. "That's life-changing money. But you'd be locked into their corporate structure for 3 years minimum," she cautioned. "No entrepreneurial ventures, no competing projects." I glanced at the email from Amanda, still open on my phone. The contrast between our paths couldn't have been starker. Her financial security had been gifted. Mine would be earned through risk, sacrifice, and perseverance. "I need time to think," I told Melissa. That night, alone in my apartment, I weighed the options until dawn. Security versus potential. Corporate stability versus entrepreneurial freedom. By morning, I had my answer. "I'm declining the acquisition terms," I told Melissa. "But I have a counter-proposal. What if we pursued Series B funding instead?" Her eyes widened. "You think we're ready?" "I know we are. Our algorithm works. We just need runway to prove it at scale." 2 weeks later, we pitched to a room of investors, with Teresa's firm leading the potential funding round. I presented the technical roadmap while Melissa handled the business projections. By the end of the day, we had commitments for $12 million in exchange for 20% of the company. Supply chain AI would survive, and my equity stake remained intact, a gamble that could eventually be worth nothing or millions. That evening, I finally responded to Amanda's invitation with a simple message. "Congratulations on your new home. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend the celebration. Best wishes for this new chapter." She didn't reply. The next 2 years unfolded like parallel storylines in a novel nobody would believe if it were fiction. My Seattle life centered entirely around building supply chain AI into a viable business. With Series B funding secured, we moved to proper offices, hired specialized talent, and began aggressive client acquisition. I advanced from project manager to chief technology officer, a title that reflected my evolving role in developing our core prediction algorithms. Success didn't come easily. Our first enterprise client implementation failed spectacularly when our system incorrectly predicted semiconductor availability, costing them millions in improper inventory positioning. I spent 72 consecutive hours identifying the algorithm flaw, sleeping on the office couch between debugging sessions. "This is how startups die," Melissa said grimly, as we prepared to face the client's executive team with our findings and solution. To our surprise, they appreciated our transparency and commitment to fixing the problem. "You've shown us your character," their chief operating officer told us. "We're still betting on your team." That vote of confidence became a turning point. Once we corrected the algorithm, its accuracy improved across all implementations. Word spread through industry channels about our technology's potential, bringing new clients and partnership opportunities. Throughout this period, my personal life remained deliberately sparse. My apartment, upgraded to a one-bedroom with actual furniture, served primarily as a place to sleep between work sessions. Friendships developed almost exclusively with colleagues who understood the all-consuming nature of our mission. Teresa, my venture capital mentor, became especially important. Our regular coffee meetings evolved from strictly business discussions to broader conversations about life philosophy and personal development. "You're driving yourself too hard," she observed during one Sunday morning meeting. "There's determination, and then there's punishing yourself. Have you considered why you're doing the latter?" Her question cut deeper than I wanted to admit. "I'm building something important." "Yes, but why this way? What are you proving, and to whom?" I had no immediate answer, but her question lingered for weeks afterward. Meanwhile, glimpses of my family's life reached me through social media and occasional updates from Mom. She had maintained contact through monthly texts, though I rarely elaborated in my responses. Amanda's condo was featured in Cleveland Modern Living magazine. Read one such update. They called her design aesthetic boldly contemporary. "We're so proud of her eye for style." The accompanying photos revealed custom furnishings and professional interior design in a space larger than most families' homes. Another text mentioned Amanda's consulting business launching, though details remained vague about actual clients or services. 6 months later, Amanda's been appointed to the Lakewood Arts Council. Unpaid position, but such prestige for someone her age. Then, "Your father and I are helping Amanda secure a vacation property in Naples. Real estate is such a solid investment these days." I responded to each message with brief congratulations while maintaining emotional distance. The contrast between Amanda's gift-wrapped life and my self-made struggle wasn't lost on me, but I refused to let bitterness take root. Instead, I channeled that energy into innovation. During a particularly intense development period, I created an enhanced algorithm that could incorporate weather pattern predictions into supply chain disruption, forecasting a capability our competitors couldn't match. "This changes everything," Melissa declared when the initial tests showed 94% accuracy. "We're filing patents immediately." The same day we received patent approval, Mom sent a Facebook link showing Amanda cutting a ribbon on a beachfront property in Florida. "Our little investor," read the caption beneath a photo of my sister holding a champagne flute beside a swimming pool overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. That evening, as Seattle rain tapped against my windows, I received an unexpected call from a Silicon Valley number. "Is this Charlton Warren?" a woman's voice asked. "Speaking. This is Eliza Chen from Fortify Capital. Your name has come up in our research into emerging supply chain technologies. We'd like to discuss acquisition possibilities." Unlike the Bright Logic offer 2 years earlier, this one valued the company at over $100 million. My equity stake would be worth $22 million if the deal proceeded. "We'd need you to lead integration for at least 18 months, Eliza explained. "But afterward, you'd have substantial capital and freedom to pursue other ventures." The offer represented everything I'd worked toward: validation, financial security, and future options. Yet something held me back from immediate acceptance. "Can I have 48 hours to consider this?" I asked. "Of course. This is a life-changing decision." After ending the call, I walked to Pike Place Market despite the rain, needing physical movement to process my thoughts. 2 years of relentless work had positioned me at a crossroads I could never have imagined when leaving Ohio. Taking the offer meant security and vindication. Declining it meant continued risk, but greater potential upside if our growth continued. The algorithm improvements were just beginning to demonstrate their full market potential. I called Teresa for guidance. "What does your instinct tell you?" she asked, after I outlined the situation. "That we're still early in our growth curve. That selling now would be leaving opportunity on the table." "Then you have your answer," she said simply. "But understand what you're choosing. Another 18 months of the same intensity, at minimum." "I understand." The next morning, I declined Fortify's offer, politely but firmly. Instead, I proposed they consider a minority investment that would provide capital while allowing us to maintain control of our direction. 2 weeks later, we closed a deal giving Fortify 15% ownership in exchange for $25 million capital that would fuel our expansion into international markets. My decision to decline full acquisition meant my paper wealth remained theoretical, tied to the company's future performance rather than guaranteed. That same day, scrolling through Facebook during a rare quiet moment, I discovered photos of Amanda's second property renovation completion. The comments section overflowed with praise from family friends. "Your parents must be so proud of your independent success. Self-made woman, crushing it in real estate. The Warren family produces such achievers." I closed the app without commenting, focusing instead on our company's international expansion strategy. The contrast between perception and reality in our parallel journeys seemed almost comical if it hadn't been so fundamentally painful. The following year transformed supply chain AI from promising startup to industry disruptor. Our predictive algorithms proved especially valuable during global shipping disruptions caused by fuel shortages and regional conflicts. Companies using our technology navigated the chaos with 40% fewer supply interruptions than competitors. My role expanded accordingly. Beyond overseeing technical development, I began representing the company at industry conferences and in negotiations with potential enterprise clients. My apartment gathered dust as I traveled to London, Singapore, and Sydney, establishing international operations. Revenue doubled, then tripled. Headcount grew from our original 14 to over 120 employees across 4 countries. Venture capital firms that had initially declined to invest now called weekly with partnership proposals. Through it all, I maintained the same focused discipline that had carried me from that painful family dinner in Lakewood to my current position. My salary increased, but my lifestyle remained relatively unchanged, a fact that sometimes perplexed newer employees accustomed to startup executives flaunting success with luxury purchases. "You drive a 5-year-old Honda," remarked our newly hired marketing director after a client dinner. "You do realize you could afford pretty much any car, right?" I shrugged. "It gets me where I need to go." The truth was more complicated. Financial security mattered to me, but displays of wealth didn't. I was building something that couldn't be measured by material possessions: independence, resilience, and the quiet satisfaction of self-made success. In September, Melissa forwarded an email that would change everything. "Forbes wants to feature you in their 30 under 30 technology section. This is huge for the company. Please say yes." The interview took place over video conference, with a journalist named Rebecca Williams asking about my background and the company's development. "What inspired you to focus on supply chain prediction?" she asked. I explained the market opportunity and technological approach, keeping to business fundamentals. "Your biography mentions you're from Ohio, but now based in Seattle. Was there industry migration that prompted the move?" The question approached territory I typically avoided in professional contexts. "I was seeking new opportunities," I answered neutrally. Rebecca's next question cut through my practiced deflection. "Our research suggests you made a dramatic career shift 3 years ago, leaving a stable position in Ohio for a high-risk startup across the country. What motivated such a significant life change?" I considered my options. I could offer the sanitized version I'd given colleagues for years, or I could share something closer to the truth. Something about Rebecca's direct approach and genuine curiosity prompted the latter. I reached a point where I needed to discover what I could accomplish entirely on my own, I said carefully. My family had made it clear they believed in different investment strategies for different children. They chose to provide substantial financial support to my sister, while explicitly telling me I would need to make my own way. Rebecca's eyes widened slightly. They financially supported your sister, but not you? Was there a particular reason given? They said she needed it more, while I was capable of supporting myself. They purchased her an expensive condominium and provided ongoing financial assistance, while making it clear no similar support would be available to me. How did that affect you? I paused, formulating my answer carefully. It clarified certain realities about family dynamics. I decided to embrace complete independence rather than maintain unclear expectations. The move to Seattle represented a clean break and self-reliance. And now your company is valued at nearly $200 million, Rebecca noted. Do you ever think about that contrast? I think about the journey, I replied honestly. Every setback, sleepless night, and small victory that built toward where we are now. Nothing was given. Everything was earned through persistence and calculated risk. The final article published 2 weeks later, with a headline I hadn't anticipated. Disowned to Disruptor. How Charlton Warren built a $200 million company after family cut him off. The opening paragraph set a dramatic tone. When Charlton Warren's parents gathered the family to announce they would financially support his sister's future, purchasing her a luxury condominium and providing monthly income while telling him he was on his own, they couldn't have predicted how completely their son would embrace independence. 3 years later, Warren's supply chain prediction company has revolutionized global logistics, earning him a personal net worth exceeding $40 million on paper. But the 30-year-old CTO still drives a used Honda and lives in a modest apartment, focused on building something money can't buy. The knowledge that success is entirely self-made. The article detailed the company's technological innovations and growth trajectory while weaving in elements of my personal journey from Ohio to Seattle. Forbes listed my estimated net worth, the company's valuation, and our client roster of Fortune 500 corporations. A professional photograph showed me in the Seattle office, the Space Needle visible through windows behind my desk. The piece concluded. When asked what advice he would give others facing family disparities, Warren offers a measured response. Create your own definition of success. Build something that brings value to others while honoring your own capabilities. True independence isn't about rejection, it's about self-knowledge and determination. As his former hometown celebrates his sister's local arts council appointment and property investments, Warren focuses on expanding his company's global impact, proving that sometimes being told you're on your own becomes the most valuable gift of all. I hadn't anticipated the article's reach or impact. Within hours of publication, my email inbox and social media accounts flooded with messages from former classmates, distant relatives, and childhood acquaintances from Lakewood. Most expressed shock about my family situation, having assumed my success had been supported rather than developed despite parental disparities. My phone rang that evening with Mom's number displayed. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her message. Charlton, we've just seen this Forbes article. I don't understand why you would share private family matters with a national publication. Your father is very upset. Please call us to discuss this mischaracterization of our family dynamics. Minutes later, a text from Dad. This public airing of family business is inappropriate. You've made your mother cry. Call immediately. I sent a brief response. The journalist asked about my background. I answered truthfully without embellishment. The facts stand as reported. The real explosion came through Amanda. She posted a lengthy Facebook statement that quickly circulated through Lakewood social circles. When your brother becomes successful and rewrites family history to make himself the victim, that's when you realize some people can never appreciate the sacrifices others made for them. My parents have always supported both their children equally according to their needs. Charlton had every advantage growing up and chose to abandon his family when he didn't receive additional financial support as an already successful adult. Now he's using a national platform to paint himself as disowned when he was the one who cut contact. Disgusting betrayal of the people who raised him. What Amanda hadn't anticipated was the response from those who had actually witnessed our family dynamics. My childhood friend Stephen commented, "I spent hundreds of hours in the Warren household growing up. I specifically remember Charlton working part-time jobs from age 16, while Amanda received a new car for her birthday that same year. These weren't equal expectations." My high school debate partner added, "Charlton earned scholarships through countless hours of study and extracurricular work. To characterize that as having every advantage misrepresents his extraordinary personal effort." Others shared similar observations, creating a comment thread that directly contradicted Amanda's narrative. By evening, she had deleted the post entirely. Later that night, a text arrived from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Teresa. Dinner tomorrow? I think you could use a friend right now." Over pasta at a quiet Seattle restaurant, I finally allowed myself to process the emotional impact of the Forbes feature and its aftermath. "You never really told me the full story before," Teresa observed. "I knew there was something driving you beyond typical ambition, but this explains your extraordinary commitment." "I didn't want to be defined by what didn't happen," I explained. "I preferred to focus on what I was building." She nodded thoughtfully. "And you've built something remarkable. But I wonder if there's still unfinished business with your family." "Probably," I admitted. "But I'm not sure how to address it. Maybe start by answering your mother's call," she suggested gently. "Not to reconcile necessarily, but to establish truth between you. Closure matters, even if relationships change permanently." I considered her advice seriously. 3 years of distance had given me perspective I hadn't possessed when leaving Lakewood. The pain remained, but its sharp edges had softened. I had proven my capabilities beyond question not just to my family, but more importantly to myself. "I'll think about it," I promised Teresa. Before I could make that decision, another email arrived from Mom. "Your father has been experiencing chest pains. Doctor says it's stress-related. We need to talk as a family. Please come home." The flight from Seattle to Cleveland lasted 4 hours and 37 minutes. I spent every moment preparing for what awaited in Lakewood, rehearsing potential conversations and emotional scenarios. The Forbes article had forced into the open family dynamics we'd never directly addressed. There would be no more polite avoidance. I rented a car at the airport rather than asking for a pickup. Driving the familiar route to my childhood home, I noted both changes and constants. In the neighborhood, new storefronts, alongside unchanged landmarks that had defined my youth. The family house looked smaller than I remembered. The once pristine lawn showed signs of neglect, with patchy sections and overgrown edges. Mom's hydrangeas appeared untended. Dad answered my knock, his appearance shocking me despite mental preparation. The robust man who had dominated family gatherings with his confident presence now looked diminished. His shoulders hunched slightly, and deep lines etched his face. "Charlton." He extended his hand formally, as if greeting a business associate rather than his son. "Thank you for coming." The gesture spoke volumes about our estrangement. I accepted the handshake, noting his weakened grip. "How are you feeling?" I asked, following him into the living room. "Better today. Medication's helping." He gestured toward an armchair. "Your mother's at the grocery store. She'll be back soon." We sat in uncomfortable silence for several minutes before Dad cleared his throat. "That article. It made things sound very one-sided." I met his gaze directly. "Which part wasn't accurate?" He shifted uncomfortably. "You weren't disowned." "That's a dramatic exaggeration. I never used that word," I replied calmly. "The headline was the journalist's choice. But the facts about financial support disparities were accurately reported." Dad's expression tightened. "We made decisions based on what we thought was best for both our children. By explicitly supporting one, while telling the other they were on their own, you were always capable, Charlton. Self-sufficient. We never worried about you. Did it occur to you that investment isn't just about need, that perhaps supporting potential might also be worthwhile? Before he could respond, the front door opened. Mom entered carrying grocery bags, freezing momentarily when she saw me. "You're here." Her voice carried mixed emotions, relief, anxiety, and something like shame. "Let me put these away." I rose to help, following her to the kitchen. As we stored groceries in familiar cabinets, the mundane activity provided a buffer against the difficult conversation ahead. "You look well," she offered tentatively. "Success agrees with you." "I'm healthy," I confirmed. "Work keeps me busy." "Too busy to return calls for 3 years?" The hurt in her voice was evident. "I needed distance," I answered honestly. "To build something independently, without the complications of family expectations." We rejoined Dad in the living room, the three of us forming an awkward triangle of seating positions. "We should wait for Amanda," Mom suggested. "She's driving over from her condo." "How is she?" I asked neutrally. An uncomfortable glance passed between my parents. "She's managing," Dad said carefully. Mom elaborated slightly. "There have been some challenges with her investment properties." Further explanation was interrupted by Amanda's arrival. She entered without knocking, her designer clothes and accessories at odds, with the tension visible in her face. "Well, if it isn't the famous entrepreneur," she said by way of greeting. "Come to check on the family you exposed in Forbes?" "Amanda," Mom cautioned. We agreed to have a civil conversation. My sister dropped into the remaining chair. "Fine. Let's be civil about how Charlton painted us as villains to boost his rags to riches story." "That wasn't my intention," I replied evenly. "The article was about the company's growth. My background was contextual. Context that made Mom cry for days," she shot back. "I think we need to address the underlying issues rather than the article itself," I suggested. "There have been significant disparities in how financial support was allocated in this family." "That's not an accusation, it's a fact we've never directly discussed." Dad leaned forward, hands clasped between his knees. "We should be honest with each other. The situation has changed considerably since you left, Charlton." "What do you mean?" Mom's eyes darted to Amanda, who suddenly seemed intensely interested in her manicure. "We've experienced some financial setbacks," Dad admitted. "Significant ones." He outlined a situation far worse than I'd imagined. The Naples property Amanda had purchased with their assistance had required extensive, unexpected repairs. When she couldn't make mortgage payments, they had covered them to protect her credit. Meanwhile, the Shaker Heights condo had been refinanced to access equity for Amanda's failed event planning business launch. "We've depleted most of our retirement savings," Dad concluded. "The stress contributed to my heart condition." I processed this information carefully. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Truly." Amanda's eyes flashed with sudden anger. "Don't pretend you care now. You've been gone, building your fortune while judging us from afar." "I haven't judged anyone," I countered. "I removed myself from a painful situation and focused on my own path." "While I suppose you think I've just been taking handouts?" Her voice rose sharply. "I think you accepted what was offered," I replied carefully. "Most people would." Mom intervened. "We didn't ask you here to assign blame, Charlton. We wanted to clear the air. And," she hesitated, exchanging glances with Dad, "we wanted to apologize." The word hung in the air between us. Unexpected and transformative. "We made mistakes in how we handled family resources," Dad continued. "We believed we were doing what was best, but we failed to consider how our decisions would affect you emotionally. The disparities were real, and they were unfair." Amanda stood abruptly. "So now I'm the problem? Everything's my fault?" "Nobody's saying that," Mom assured her. "Aren't you?" Charlton becomes successful, and suddenly everyone regrets helping me. Tears welled in her eyes. "Do you know what it was like growing up as his sister? Always being compared to perfect Charlton, who never struggled with anything?" The raw emotion in her voice surprised me. This wasn't the entitled sister of my perception, but someone carrying her own deep-seated pain. "I felt like a constant disappointment," she continued, voice breaking. So yes, when Mom and Dad offered financial support, I took it. It felt like the one time they believed in me instead of you. The revelation struck me with unexpected force. While I had perceived favoritism toward Amanda, she had experienced the opposite feeling, perpetually inadequate beside a brother who seemed naturally capable at everything. "I never knew you felt that way," I said quietly. "How could you? You were too busy succeeding at everything." The bitterness in her voice had become something more vulnerable. "Do you know why I needed that condo? Because I couldn't bear the thought of failing at independent living while you thrived across the country." Mom wiped tears from her cheeks. "We never meant to create this competition between you. But you did," I said gently. "By treating us differently, rather than equitably, you reinforced it." Dad nodded slowly. "We see that now. Too late, perhaps." A heavy silence fell over the room. Years of unspoken feelings finally acknowledged. "What happens now?" I finally asked. "What do you want from this conversation?" Dad straightened slightly. "We're not asking for financial help, if that's what you're thinking. We made our choices." "That wasn't my assumption," I assured him. "But I'd like to understand where we go from here." "We'd like a relationship with you again," Mom said simply. "Not based on money, or comparisons, or past mistakes. Just family, however imperfect." Amanda remained standing, arms crossed protectively. "I'm sure Mr. Forbes 30 under 30 has better things to do than reconnect with his disappointing family." I studied my sister, seeing past her defensive posture to the insecurity beneath. "I don't think you're disappointing, Amanda. I think you're someone who took a different path and faced different challenges." "Don't patronize me," she snapped. "I'm not. I'm trying to understand your perspective, which I clearly failed to do before." The conversation continued for hours, painful at times but increasingly honest. Dad described the pressure he'd felt as retirement approached with inadequate savings, leading to increasingly desperate financial decisions. Mom admitted to enabling Amanda's dependence out of fear she wouldn't survive independently. Amanda acknowledged using their support to avoid confronting her own insecurities and career indecision. And I recognized my own role, the way I'd maintained a facade of indifference while nursing deep hurt, how my departure had been as much escape as independence seeking. I knew about the email, I finally confessed. The one about managing my expectations. I saw it open on Dad's laptop during that last family dinner. Dad's face paled. "You never said anything." "What was there to say?" It confirmed what I already suspected, that family resources had always been disproportionately allocated toward Amanda. "We should have been transparent," Mom acknowledged, "instead of pretending equality while practicing favoritism." As evening approached, the raw emotions gradually gave way to tentative steps toward understanding. No single conversation could heal years of dysfunctional family dynamics, but truth-telling had created possibilities that hadn't existed before. "I need to get back to my hotel," I said eventually. "This has been a lot to process." "Will we see you again before you return to Seattle?" Mom asked, hope evident in her voice. "Yes," I promised. "I'll stay through the weekend. Maybe we can continue talking tomorrow." As I prepared to leave, Amanda approached me awkwardly. "For what it's worth, I was impressed by what you've built. Not that I understand supply chain algorithms." The small olive branch represented significant effort on her part. "Thanks. That means a lot." Walking to my rental car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because everything was resolved, far from it, but because truth had finally replaced the polite fictions that had defined our family for so long. The weekend in Lakewood stretched to a full week as our family began the difficult process of rebuilding relationships on more honest foundations. Each conversation brought new revelations about how differently we had experienced shared events, and how assumptions and lack of communication had created deep misunderstandings. I extended my hotel stay, spending days at the family home and evenings processing my thoughts in solitude. Seattle seemed a world away, though I maintained daily video conferences with the leadership team to keep company operations on track. By the 5th day, I had formulated a plan that I presented to my parents over coffee at the kitchen table, Amanda notably absent by my design. "I'd like to help stabilize your financial situation," I began carefully. Not as repayment or obligation, but because I have resources that can provide security as you age. Dad's expression immediately tensed. We didn't ask you here for money, Charlton. I know. That's why I'm offering it freely, with specific parameters. I outlined a structured approach, establishing a retirement trust that would provide monthly income to supplement their existing resources, covering Dad's medical expenses not addressed by insurance, and refinancing their mortgage to reduce monthly obligations. These steps address immediate security concerns, I explained. But they don't create dependency or enable further problematic patterns. Mom squeezed Dad's hand. What do you mean exactly? I'm not offering unlimited funds or ongoing support for Amanda's ventures. This is specifically about ensuring your retirement security and health needs. Dad struggled visibly with pride versus practicality. We made our own mistakes. Taking your money seems like avoiding consequences. Consider it an investment in our future relationship, I suggested. I can't build a meaningful connection if I'm constantly worried about your basic welfare. After lengthy discussion, they accepted my father with reluctance, tempered by medical reality, my mother with tearful gratitude. The conversation with Amanda proved more challenging. We met at a coffee shop near her condo, neutral territory for what I anticipated would be an emotional discussion. Let me guess, she said after I outlined my plans for our parents. Nothing for the irresponsible sister? That's not what this is about, I replied calmly. Mom and Dad are approaching retirement with serious financial instability. That requires immediate attention. She stirred her latte aggressively. While I'm just supposed to sink or swim after years of being told I needed special support, I'm proposing something different for you, I said. Not a handout, but an opportunity. I explained my actual offer. Funding for specialized career training in a field of her choice, contingent upon program completion and employment maintenance. I would also provide temporary housing support during the transition period, gradually decreasing as she established independence. Why would you do this after everything that's happened? Suspicion colored her tone. Because you're my sister. Because I remember defending you from bullies and helping with homework and wanting good things for you, despite everything that's transpired since. Her eyes filled with unexpected tears. I don't know if I can succeed the way you expect me to. I don't have specific expectations, I clarified. I'm offering resources for you to find your own path, not prescribing what that should look like. And if I fail, then we adjust and try something else. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress toward genuine independence and fulfillment. Over subsequent days, Amanda identified a digital marketing certification program that aligned with her communications background and creative interests. Her enthusiasm grew as she researched potential career paths, gradually shifting from defensiveness to cautious optimism. I thought I wanted real estate because it seemed impressive, she admitted during a surprisingly candid conversation, but I hated every aspect of property management. This feels different, like something I might actually enjoy. Before returning to Seattle, I established the necessary financial structures through my attorney, with clear documentation and boundaries. The retirement trust for my parents. A separate educational trust for Amanda, with specific disbursement requirements. All designed to support independence rather than enable dependency. 6 months later, I returned to Lakewood for Thanksgiving, the first family holiday we'd shared since my departure 3 years earlier. The changes were immediately apparent. Dad looked healthier. The stress lines in his face softened with improved medical care and financial stability. Mom had started volunteering at a literacy program, finding purpose beyond family caretaking. The house showed signs of repair and renewal, much like our relationships. Most striking was Amanda's transformation. She had completed her certification with high marks and secured an entry-level position with a digital marketing agency. Her conversation focused on projects and professional growth rather than material acquisitions. I'm thinking about getting a roommate and moving to a smaller place, she mentioned during dinner. The condo feels excessive for one person, and the maintenance costs are ridiculous. Mom nearly dropped her serving spoon in surprise. That's Very practical thinking, sweetheart. Well, I'm learning about living within actual means, Amanda replied with a self-aware smile in my direction. Turns out it's more satisfying than I expected. After dinner, Dad and I sat on the back porch despite the November chill, watching darkness settle over the familiar neighborhood. I never properly apologized, he said quietly. For the favoritism, for the secret financial planning, for failing to recognize your worth beyond self-sufficiency. I've made peace with it, I told him honestly. Not because it was right, but because moving forward requires accepting the past without being defined by it. He nodded slowly. You've taught me more about integrity in the past year than I managed to teach you in 28 years. I learned plenty from you, I countered. Work ethic, persistence, accountability. I just applied those lessons differently than you might have anticipated. Inside, Amanda and Mom laughed over something in the kitchen, the sound drifting through partially opened windows. The simple domesticity of the moment struck me as both ordinary and precious, a family finding its way back to authentic connection. In the months that followed, our healing continued through regular video calls and occasional visits. Amanda thrived in her new career, eventually being promoted to project manager. My parents embraced a modified retirement that balanced Dad's improved health with meaningful community involvement. Supply chain AI continued its explosive growth trajectory, expanding into new markets and technologies. Teresa joined our board of directors, bringing valuable perspective and institutional knowledge. I purchased my first home, a modest lakeside cabin outside Seattle, that provided weekend respite from the company's intensity. The Forbes article that had precipitated our family reckoning faded from public attention, but its impact remained transformative. It had forced uncomfortable truths into the open, creating painful but necessary conversations that ultimately led to healing. 1 year after that initial confrontation, I established the Warren Family Foundation, with a portion of my equity proceeds following a secondary offering. The foundation funded scholarships for students, demonstrating both academic potential and financial need, supporting young people who, like my younger self, needed both recognition of their capabilities and practical assistance to fully realize them. During the foundation's launch event in Seattle, I invited my entire family to attend. Watching them interact comfortably with my colleagues and friends symbolized the integration of previously separate worlds. Amanda approached me during the reception, champagne flute in hand. Remember when you used to help me with math homework? You were always a good teacher. You were a quick learner when the material interested you, I reminded her. Maybe that's what I needed all along, to find what actually interested me, rather than what seemed impressive. She studied me thoughtfully. Do you ever wonder how things might have been different if Mom and Dad had treated us the same from the beginning? I considered her question carefully. I might never have left Ohio, might never have pushed myself to the same limits, might never have discovered what I was truly capable of achieving. So, in a weird way, their favoritism led to your success. I'd say my response to adversity led to growth. The challenge itself wasn't the benefit, how I chose to handle it was. She nodded slowly. I'm trying to adopt that mindset now. Better late than never, right? Later that evening, addressing the foundation's inaugural gathering, I reflected on the journey that had brought us all together. Success isn't measured by Forbes listings or company valuations, I told the assembled guests. It's found in the integrity of your choices, the authenticity of your relationships, and your commitment to lifting others as you climb. Being told I was on my own initially felt like rejection, but ultimately became an opportunity to discover my true capabilities, not just professionally, but as a human being capable of forgiveness, growth, and compassion. Looking out at the audience, I saw my parents wiping tears, Amanda nodding in understanding, and Teresa smiling with mentor's pride. The path from that painful family dinner in Lakewood to this moment had been neither direct nor easy, but every step had contributed to a resolution I couldn't have imagined 3 years earlier. True independence, I had learned, wasn't about severing connections or proving worth through achievement alone. It was about establishing healthy boundaries, recognizing inherent value beyond external validation, and choosing relationship repair over righteous resentment when possible. Some family wounds never completely heal, but they can transform into sources of wisdom and strength when acknowledged honestly. We carry our histories with us, but we need not be limited by them. Sometimes, the most independent choice is deciding how to remain connected on healthier terms. Have you ever experienced family favoritism or had to make your own way without support? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more real-life journeys of overcoming adversity. And if you know someone struggling with family dynamics or needing inspiration to forge their own path, please share this with them. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes being on your own becomes the gift that reveals your true strength and capabilities.